a lot of it rang true for me. So I greatly appreciate your help and guidance with this.
Hello, dreamer. Welcome. I'm so glad we're getting to work together today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so tell us 3 things about yourself that might be good to know as we do this work.
Okay, I'm in my mid 20s. I am someone who works with young people, and I am obsessed with Legos.
Okay, all righty then. So let's jump right in. Please tell me your dream.
So I've been having this recurring dream recently of me waking up as I step onto the campus of what I can only assume is a summer camp. It's not a place that looks particularly familiar to me, but it looks like the kind of place that a summer camp would happen. And what's very interesting is that the textures of everything are very specific. That all of my senses feel very, very alive and awake, which is not something that I'm necessarily used to in dreaming. So I can feel the grass beneath my feet. I can smell the morning dew, and as I go into this time of summer camp, it's a time where people are very excited about something that's going on, but it feels like it's only barely hanging on by a thread. And it's almost as if people are somewhat aware that that like a clock is ticking, like something's about to be thrown off the rails. And we never get to that point where something does go wrong, but it feels this impending weight, like the oncoming presence of a storm. In the South, we say you can smell when it's going to rain, and that's very true of this moment. You can tell that something bad is about to happen. Something is about to disrupt all the serenity, and everybody's just trying to muscle through it in a way that will make everything okay. And it feels like we go about our day in normal summer camp material. People are enjoying food. People are swimming in a river or a lake. People are uh, bouncing on those big inflatable blob things that they're in a lake, and it feels like everything is going very well until we all realize that the thing that we've been dreading has come, and we all look very shocked, very just mouth agape, and that is when I wake up at that point.
And can you identify that thing in this dream or these recurring dreams? What is that dreaded thing?
I believe in my dream, it just looks like this great shadow comes over all of us, almost like in a sci-fi movie where people look up into the sky and suddenly there's a shadow coming over the sun. So yes, that's how my dream ends, is we all notice the thing that we've been dreading has come and it's looming over us, and that's when I wake up.
So the we of the dream, can you give me some more information about the we of the dream? These are campers and counselors, or
Yes,
who
it's
is
campers and counselors, all of which have some attributes of people who I've known throughout my life. Some are friends from friends from elementary school, some are family members, some are people who I see in my day-to-day life now. But
Okay.
it's not specific individuals. It's like they have aspects of all these people who I've seen before.
Okay. Okay. All right. And how many times would you say that you have had this dream, and when did they start?
So I've had this dream three times in the last month, which the only other time I've ever had a recurring dream, it was it was in that sort of window the of around a month. And the interesting thing is that this dream, very little, if anything, changes dream to dream. It is
Okay.
borderline identical.
Okay. And one more question. You mentioned a feeling of dread. Can you say any other emotion or feeling in the dream?
I would say definitely anxiety,
Mm,
and also a lot of curiosity. I don't know that I would say necessarily worry, but just I don't know what's going to happen.
okay. In the dream, are you a counselor?
That's a good question. I don't believe I am. I think with the way that I remembered the dream, I'm going through it in a way that I don't think I would be a counselor in that position.
Okay. Do you have a sense that you're one of the campers?
I think so.
Okay. All righty. Let's get to work. The first thing I want to talk about, Dreamer, is the idea that the dream is recurring. So dreams are a message from the unconscious. They include information, especially remembered dreams are including information that one needs to become conscious of. Sort of patterns of psychic movement are reflected in dreams. And when we remember a dream, it's giving us sort of a picture, if you will, of what's going on inside of us, just under the level of consciousness. And so the dreams are showing us in symbolic form something we need to know about ourselves and our situation. Okay. Recurring dreams happen when we don't get it. Recurring dreams happen when the thing that is being presented to us is not understood, not listened to, not given credit for. So recurring dreams are sort of like a blinking neon sign. Okay,
Mhm.
dreamer, here it is.
Okay.
You're not
Yeah.
listening. Here it is again. Here it is again. As a something is coming to consciousness and it's asking to be paid attention to. Okay.
Mhm.
So I wanted to lay that out for any viewers who are having recurring dreams. Those recurring dreams are really being asked to, they're asking to be looked at, to be worked with, to be thought about, to be what we're doing here. Okay. All right. So that's the first thing. The next thing is summer camp. What are your associations with summer camp?
I think for me, summer camp has always it's been a part of my life since I was growing up. I was a part of scouting, so that was a very formative part of my childhood. And then with the work that I do now, it involves me participating or advocating for summer camp programs a lot of the time. Yes.
and participating.
Mhm.
All right. And that is part of your work now,
Yes.
presently. Okay. So what was, for instance, the positive aspect of summer camp? What was the negative aspect of summer camp, if there was one?
I think for me, the positive aspect was a great sense of community,
Okay.
a lot of shared experience. I formed a lot of friendships at summer camp. It was a great place to also learn and hear people's stories. I think that's one of the biggest things that I take away from it now is all these stories that I have of my time at summer camp.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, as far as cons, I, there were times of isolation. Wasn't always the the most popular person in the room. There was also a sense of kind of needing to prove myself, and I'm trying to think because there's something on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to figure out the best way to articulate it. There was a sense of disappointment because I think for me growing up, I think I built up in my mind a lot of times what the summer camp experience was, what it would be like, and it oftentimes missed those expectations.
There's a word. So that's exactly what I was about to ask you. And that was, is this something about expectations? So I think that's super important. Okay. So it's really interesting that this dream has taken you back to this, it's taken you back
Mhm.
to this. And for you to be able to articulate something about disappointment of expectations. And we often, everybody does this, often put expectations on events, holidays, for instance, experiences we're looking forward to. And then this happens, this disappointment happens if it doesn't live up to those expectations. So, okay, so we got that. All right. I'm very interested in the idea that it was so vivid, right?
Mhm.
It was,
Yes.
you said it was very vivid in that all of your senses were heightened.
Yes.
This is fairly unusual. And what I mean by that is most of the time dreams are visual, but the other senses are frequently not engaged. Even hearing is not as important in dreams as the seeing, the imagery, the visual. And so for this to occur, may indicate that the dream really, really, really wants you to pay attention.
Mhm.
It's vividness. Often in dreams, the vividness of a dream is, hey, colors that stand out. As you noted, there was a olfactory aspect to it, fragrance, texture, etc. And we can break that down. We could break that down on all of that to see what those extra meanings are behind that. Did you say you smelled grass? Is that what you said?
Yes, yes, smelling the morning dew and and
Yeah.
also and also feeling the grass. It was almost as if I was barefoot and you could feel the
Feel.
the
Uh-huh.
the wet
Mm-hmm.
grass.
Uh-huh. So a question that pops up for me in this is, in your waking life, are you paying attention to things like this? Are you plugged into the information your senses are giving you, because often we are completely unplugged from that if we're too much in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's something to sort of think about. Is the dream in part calling you into something more, engaging your own senses more in waking life? I'm throwing that out as a possibility. Or are you missing some things, for instance, some appreciation of the beauty of nature around you, or anything like that? So that might be being touched on here. The first thing I said, though, is absolutely right. A vivid dream is calling you to really pay attention. Okay. All right. So I just needed to kind of say that real quick. Then the next thing that's going on is you use several words that are really interesting. One was excited. You were excited. And then there was also dread and hanging on by a thread. And these are two different things, to be excited about something, but there's a feeling of impending disaster or something in
Mm-hmm.
that's to be dreaded. So can you say a little bit more about that? Does anything
Sure.
come to mind here?
Well, I think with the excitement, I think it's a jovialness. I think it's
Mhm.
a lot of joy around the people and the fact that they're there, and looking forward to something, looking forward to possibilities, looking forward to what's going to happen on the schedule. And I think the dread is more so referring to a sense that this joy may be coming to an end. It's that thing of there's a lot of really important things to me on the table right now, and I don't want them to get swept away.
Okay, so there is this feeling that something bad is coming, or something bad is going to make that true, to make something
Mhm.
sweep away all the fun things. And you enumerated the fun things. People are enjoying food, they're enjoying swimming, they're doing things that one does at summer camp, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And is there anything in those activities that warrant our attention?
I I don't think so.
Okay,
Um,
okay. So this sort of moves toward that in the
yes.
in the course of you talking about the dream. This is moving toward that. Okay. So what we look for then is there a waking life correlation? Is there something going on for you in which you are excited about something, or some idea about it coming to an end, or something like that?
Mhm.
Do you have a waking life association with any of this?
I think there may be some things. For one thing, I'm in school right now and am getting ready to sort of disconnect from the community of my people that I'm in school with
That's
during my graduate studies.
uh-huh.
In fact, this past spring, when the group above me graduated, it was very difficult. It was lots of emotions.
Okay. I can sure see the parallel here
Mhm.
between leaving wonderful summer camp and all of the fun things that go along with that, and then leaving this community. Because this is, I mean, the folks we go to school with is a really close community. So that might be part of it. That might be part of what this is about. So let me ask this question of you, dreamer. Would you consider yourself an extrovert in
Yes,
nature? You're extroverted in
absolutely.
nature? Okay, okay. Because the words community came up, and the idea, the best part of camp was community. The worst part was feeling isolated or wondering where you fit in with all the folks. And that kind of gave me the clue that you were extroverted in nature, in that you get a lot of energy interacting with other people.
Hmm. Yes.
That's energizing, it's fun, and that sort of thing. The next thing that we see is the dread has come, and there's an anxiety around it. Are you having some anxiety about what comes after school or what comes next?
I think there's a little bit of that.
Uh-huh.
I I think there's a little bit of that just in there have been some people who have asked me to continue with my schooling, get additional degrees. There's a little bit of pressure chase to chase a doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also there's some anxiety about the fact that I'm about to actually be done with school after high school, undergrad, grad school, all flowing together. I'm about to enter into a time where I don't have any educational, I'm going to say shackles. That's not what I mean, but
Mhm.
I'm not committed to any sort of schooling at the moment. I'm sort of living life.
Yeah, yeah. Any of these transitions include this.
Mhm.
Any of these huge life transitions have some excitement to them, but they also have, oh my gosh, what's next? Or this business that I've been in school, yes, but it's been difficult. It's been a lot of hard work, but it's my community, and I'm comfortable here, and I know what this is all about. And now that's coming to an end. And so I can understand this relating to this, and the kind of what now, what next? Do I do this? Do I do that? That that makes sense to me. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does.
Okay. Let me ask you, are we on to something? Do you think we're on the right track here?
I think so. I think so. What you're saying is making a lot of sense
Okay.
with where my head's been at recently. So yes.
Okay. So the dream's kind of giving you a picture of that.
Hmm.
Okay. I think the most important thing, however, is coming up, and that is that the appearance of the thing that is dreaded, and that is the shadow. The
Hmm.
you described it as a great shadow, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is very important work. Okay. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to take a teaching moment.
Sure.
All righty. Do you mind me asking exactly how old you are?
26.
Okay. You're early. This work, this work of facing a shadow aspect of ourselves often comes at midlife,
Mhm.
40. However, there's no hard and fast rule about this. And if the shadow comes to call, then we got to pay attention. Now, what in the world am I talking about when I say the shadow? I think that it is a great time, and the people that you kind of sort of semi recognize through in the dream, you recognize from every single place in your life, from earlier in childhood through the schools, etc. it it's like life review. And so here's the deal: the first part of life is building what we call our ego and our ego strength, which we need that. It helps us get stuff done in the world, and so we need to be doing that. And so we develop an aspect of ourselves. But when we're developing one aspect of ourselves, all the other aspects are sort of left behind, and they become shadow. Now, what am I talking about? We all have a picture of ourselves. We all have an idea of who we are and what we're about. And when we choose that, when we choose who we are and what we're about, we choose against all the rest. But the psyche will not let us get away with that. The psyche wants us all. If you want to put it in religious terms, God wants us all, not just our beautiful outward appearance, our carefully crafted persona. God wants all of us, both the light part and the shadow part. Notice I don't say the good and the bad. It's not that. It's the developed aspect of ourselves, which is working lovely, but also there's parts of ourselves undeveloped, which sometimes don't look attractive, often doesn't look attractive. And nevertheless, we have to acknowledge it and maybe even develop it in order to be a whole person. And and when that starts coming to the fore, it has a feeling of dread about it. It just does. So I'm wondering if that's what this is all about. And when I asked you how you felt about it, you said there was some anxiety around this, but there's also curiosity.
Yes.
Well, there it is. That's what we're looking for. In order for you to pay attention to the shadow, you become or your own shadow. All of us looking at our own, everybody has a shadow. I hasten to add. Yes, we've got a little bit of anxiety, sure, but to approach it without judgment and with curiosity is the approach. What is this all about? What are these sort of underground thoughts that I have from time to time, or these little quirky habits that I wouldn't necessarily want anybody to know that I'm doing, or these fantasies that I might have of some new way of life or some different way of making a living, for instance, the undeveloped aspect of ourselves. Now, being the extrovert that you are, what's in your shadow is the introvert. The introvert is the aspect of the ability to be alone. The ability to be alone. Notice that community, your extroverted aspect, is very positive about community, but your shadow aspect has something to do with being alone, and it's viewed as negative. However, we need both. And the introverted aspect, the going inside, the being quiet, the cultivating of being alone allows you to understand, get to know yourself on the inside a little bit better, as opposed to being out there all the time. Does any of this ring with you?
It rings incredibly true. I think in my own life, I talk about being on a lot.
Yes.
And that shift of going from being on to absolutely shutting down is a transition that is usually very, very sudden and very abrupt.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is really interesting because we are rewarded in our culture for this. The culture rewards extroversion. The kid that raises his hand in school, the quiet kid is often overlooked, or there's something wrong, or something. Okay, so we're rewarded for this. So there's a bunch of folks out there that look like extroverts that actually in their temperament are introverts. And it's exhausting as it can be. It's exhausting to hold on to extroversion without some introvert time. So in saying that, dreamer, do you have a sense that you might be a secret introvert?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't, my immediate thought is no.
Okay.
That being said, I am reminded of a time in my life where I was speaking to a mentor of mine
Mm-hmm.
and told them, as crazy as it may sound, there are oftentimes when I just want to walk into a space and nobody have any idea who I am, what I'm doing there, or even know that I'm there. And that's the only time I've ever necessarily articulated that desire.
Mm-hmm.
But it is sticking out to me now as we're talking about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So keep thinking about that, dreamer. Keep kind of thinking about that. That might be, at least in some part, what this dream is bringing to your attention. The idea of being on all the time is very energy. It consumes a great deal of energy,
Mhm.
a great deal of our personal energy. Unless it gives you energy and then it doesn't.
Sure.
Right. And so I think that might be important to pay close attention to going forward so that you begin to know yourself. When do you have the energy and when are you getting fed by being this extroverted own, you know, and when do you need a little bit of this time to think about things or regenerate or just rest, you know, and this kind of admission that you made to your mentor friend, just once in a while, I'd like to go somewhere where nobody knows who I am, is an interesting one to be thinking about. Just wanted to sort of say that. But the approach of curiosity is absolutely the approach. You know, sometimes we're afraid to look inside of ourselves because we're not sure what we're going to find. And so to be curious about what's going on inside of ourselves and remember to do so without judgment, without judgment. Because there's some dark stuff lurking around inside of every human psyche, no question about it. But we can't judge it. We just have to watch it and look for it and notice this. And that begins the integration process of becoming a whole person. And
Sure.
there's great power and authority in acknowledging all of this. If we don't acknowledge our shadow side, that shadow side, that darker side of ourselves, or the side we don't like, or the side that's undeveloped, it gets projected elsewhere, and we see it in someone else, or we see it in a group of people, and often we don't like them, but it's really us. That's shadow. If we are able to see our shadow with curiosity and without judgment, and to own it a little bit, it's a source of great authority. It's a source of great energy. Does this mean anything to you?
It does. It does.
Okay.
I'm thinking, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So this is also directly related, if you will, to our spiritual life. It's directly related to our spiritual life. As I said a little while ago, God wants all of us. I mean, all the parts.
Sure.
Yeah. And anything that's coming to consciousness has some anxiety in it. Here's why. When we have a new sense of consciousness, when we have a new sense of ourselves or a new insight about ourselves or something like that, there's no going back. And that means, often that means change, a change in how we think about ourselves, or a change in how we do things, or a change in attitude. And here's what's also true. Ego hates change. Change feels like dread. And here you are on the edge of a pretty important transition from being in school to now being out of school. So who wouldn't have, this is big change that's about to occur. Big change. So in some respects, that is this as well. Things will, once you finish school, things will never be the same. Even if you go on to get another postgraduate degree, it's just going to change and it won't be the same. So how are we doing? How do you think we're doing?
I think you're bringing to light a lot of things that they're very applicable.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what you said about approaching it with that curiosity that says don't judge it,
Yeah.
is really sticking out to me, because I think that's a thing that I struggle with, is assigning very definitive modifiers to everything that I do in my life. You either do it, I either do it really well, or I do it very poorly. And there's, I allow myself very little gray area.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is asking for some gray. I think this is asking for some gray area. And also, I would posit to you, I would suggest to you also the idea of, as you go forward, no matter what you do, to build in a little bit of space between what you do and what you are. In other words, often folks identify too carefully, too closely with their successes and failures, or their so-called failures. And what I often say is, there really are no failures. There's just change of plan. So I tried this, it didn't work, change of plan. I tried this, it did work, do it some more. And then I tried this and it didn't work, change of plan. It doesn't define who you are. It just is what you do. There's a difference between who you are and what you do. And so that's another thing to throw into this a little bit, as you make your decisions about going forward.
Absolutely.
And, decisions about continuing your education or whatever's next. Okay. How you feel?
I feel really good. I'll be honest. I was very sort of up in the air about whether or not this actually meant anything, because I am somebody who works in close proximity to the environments that I was seeing in the dream, and I didn't know if it was just maybe you need to go and spend some time at summer camp for a little bit before the weather changes. But I think that you've pointed out a lot of very good and very valid points that ring true for me a lot. So I feel really good right now.
I am delighted. Now, one thing we do when we've worked with the dream is we do something to honor the dream, something in the world, a ritual, or a creative act or some creative expression of some sort in order to sort of respond to our psyche, that which sent us the dream in the first place. We do something symbolic back in order to say, I heard it, I'm listening. So does anything present itself? You mentioned just a second ago, do you need to go to summer camp before the weather changes? There's one that close by, relatively close by. Is there a retreat day in your future? I'm throwing that out.
There actually is a time coming up that I have set aside as a retreat day.
Okay.
So
Great. All right. So that's one. Does anything else spring to mind? Mm-hmm.
I think what you said about finding some sort of creative process to honor the dream
Mm-hmm.
is also something that rings very true to me. I would consider myself a creative person, and I have been struggling with a little bit of creative drought recently.
Oh,
So so trying to trying to make something or create something, I think, would be a good way to honor the dream.
fantastic. Okay. How do you usually express your creativity?
I either am a performative person,
Okay.
I love performance, but I also love very tactile actions. I said at the beginning of this, I'm obsessed with Legos, but I also love painting miniatures and things of that
Okay.
nature. And I actually have some miniatures that need to be painted. So that might be a good designated practice for this.
Okay. So choose an image from the dream or some other symbolic image and paint a miniature of it.
I can do that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's brilliant. Now, let me ask about the Legos.
Hmm.
So I know this because I have a grandson that's obsessed, but lots of Legos come as a kit that's a particular thing, and you follow the instructions and you build the Star Wars ship, for instance,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
yeah, that. Okay. But then there's also, I think, value in just having a big old tub of Legos and building something free form as it comes to you. What's your approach to Lego building?
I approach it both ways. I have a lot of sets that I love I love having a very direct instruction manual that says
Hmm.
put this piece here, but I also have one of those large tubs of Legos that I am that I'm also a fan of just building as it comes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That might be a really interesting thing to do as well, is get the freeform tub o Legos out and without getting too bogged down in an outcome,
Mhm.
just build something and see where it goes. Enter into that process and sort of just feel it through. I don't know. I'm making this up.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, as a way to you know to honor the dream. How does that feel?
That feels great. Those all sound very good and very doable
Mhm.
ways of of honoring the dream.
All right. So one more thing, and that is when you do this, and when you make a miniature or you build something with Lego or after your retreat day, when it comes to these recurring dreams, once you do some work around them and you honor the work, it's so important to watch what you dream next, because the dream has said something to you 3 times. Now we have talked about what the possible meanings are. And as always, we've just sort of touched the surfaces. There's plenty more for you to kind of be thinking about here. And okay, so you respond to the dream, to the 3 dreams in these ways. We've talked about it, and you do 1 or more of these.
Mhm.
Then you will get another dream eventually, which will be in response to the work that you've done, because now you're in dialogue with your unconscious. And that is a tremendous source. The same thing that sends you a dream is the source of this creative process. And so to be in dialogue with the dreams and with the deeper parts of the psyche enhances your creative processes. So you really watch out for the next dream. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I suggest you keep a dream journal. I suggest everybody keep a dream journal. So, all right. Do you feel at this point like we're good? Do you feel like we've sort of gotten somewhere here?
I think so. I think so. Thank you so much. I this was a tremendous amount of help, and I beyond just enjoying to hear what you had to say, it really did, a lot of it rang true for me. So I greatly appreciate your help and guidance with this.
I am delighted. I I love dreams. I think dreams are brilliant, and your dream is quite brilliant.